When I heard about Radio's death, I was at home. I was at home with my son when I heard about the news, and it was really quite tragic, only because his son and my son used to play together. The mother of one of his children and my wife are very good friends, very almost best friends, and they've always been very close. So the impact was immediately felt, because not only was it a friend of mine, but our kids are friends, and that was definitely a hard pill to swallow. I think the thing I remember about Radio is, everyone can sing his praises and say he was the nicest guy. For me, I just remember the fearlessness. He just seemed unafraid. In any situation we were in, once we were out in the bundus, in a situation that could have gone south very easily. We're doing the Tusker Twendakazi TV show, and we're out in one of the most rural places that you can head out to, in Kenya. And something went wrong, and everyone panicked. I panicked. Everyone on set panicked. But I just remember the fearlessness with which he handled the situation. So people remember how nice he was and whatnot. Me, I think his relaxed nature and the way he sang really didn't reflect his ambition, his focus, his fearlessness, his aggression, his one-sidedness. It was almost like you need to put a bouncer in Radio's body. He knew that his talent and his skill and his intelligence, he was just a giant, and that's how you saw him when you walked into a room. The guy, the smallest guy in the room, but you'd feel like you finished a conversation looking up to him. You know what I mean? And that's the fearlessness. That's one of the things that I think astounded me about him. I was there when they were first working, and they had all come downstairs. The directive, from the sponsors and everything was only let Navio go up there. So we were up there. We had already set up the studio. We had started working. Me and Wiz had already started working on songs, and Washington came downstairs, and he was like, "Hey, I'm here. What, Radio Weasel? They're not getting us up." So, I send word. I'm like, "Man, let them up here. These guys are better friends than we are." And they come up, and immediately the energy, it's something that even me and Weasel had to watch, because it was two singers, going through their notes and their, and Weasel, of course, is very good friends with Wiz, but I think artistically, Radio and Wiz connected on a level that you don't see often. It's a Jay-Z, Kanye West connection that they had. And we were sitting there, we had finished my song, and they just kept going. And they ended up, before the show was that night, they ended up with 5 songs. 5 songs completed, start to finish, as well as the 2 songs I'd recorded before. So that was 7 songs that they did. And I've seen Wiz work. I've done contracting for him all over the world. And I've never seen Wizkid work like that. 2-3 songs a day, yeah. But to do 5 plus 2, as soon as he met Radio, they just connected. And I can't imagine how many more songs they've worked on, The album was definitely a plan to do with Radio and Weasel and Wizkid. But I got to see it firsthand. And it's something that we all had to, Wizkid had to hit notes that he's never hit before. Radio pushed him to be a better artist that day. And I'm sure every other day that they met in studio, Radio pushed Wizkid to become a better artist. That's the truth, and I saw it with my own eyes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was saying earlier that, everyone remembers him for being the nicest guy. I'm like, he wasn't the nicest guy, but he was the most focused. I had an artist that I used to work with, and, every time I'd say, you need to get out of the club and, get into studio and work. And when you're in the studio, you need to do A, B, C, D. They would always use Radio as an example. And they'd always be like, you know, yeah, but radio's in the club all night and then he's in the studio all day and he does things like this and things like that. And he'd always try and compare himself with radio. And I'd be like, the difference with radio and you is that he can work under pressure. He has that spirit of aggression and focus and a driving force. You know, it's not rage, but it's a certain aggression. And I think this came over in his real life. You know, and I told that artist, don't compare yourself to radio because radio will knock out 4 hit songs in one night. You can't knock out one in 6 months. You know what I mean? So never compare yourself with a radio. You know, so that aggression that he had for music, he had in life. So if something wasn't how it was, if someone offended his children, you're going to hear about it immediately. If someone offended Weasel, he'd always be the one standing the ground. You know what I mean? Weasel would be a peacemaker, and radio would be like, if you don't like it, you know, so be it. You know what I mean? And that's how we knew them. You know, Weasel was the peacemaker who would be calming his brother down, and radio wouldn't mind shouting at the biggest guy in the club and telling him, you know, to move out of his space. That's how I remember him. You know, I mean, I'm not gonna stand here and lie, you know, that he was a perfect human being, but he was perfect to me. You know, I'm also aggressively focused. I don't want people to waste my time. So I think that was one of the things I think was beautiful about Radio and Weasel. Don't waste his time. He doesn't want you to waste his time. Let's get to this music. That's the time. Only time I saw him calm was in the studio, in the corner, coming up with the next chorus. That's the only time I saw him calm. Otherwise, what's happening next? Where are we going? We're in Nairobi, we're in Tanzania. You know, remember Radio and Weasel and Navio were the only 2 guys moving on the continent, you know, by those times. So I saw them everywhere, and it was a beautiful thing. Very first time I met Radio, I met him opposite Fido Dido. There used to be a studio in there, next across from the Lebanese place on Kampala Road. And yeah, Fido Dido, that road, yeah, there was a studio there. And so I came in, I met Chameleon, and then I met Radio for the first time. And everyone was eating lunch, and I remember ordering lunch, and Radio wasn't eating, and so we actually shared a plate of food. And he ate like basically nothing off the plate. And so I always thought, you know, I never thought that he would be the next mega star, you know, but I'm always glad that I got to share a plate of food with him when no one knew his name, you know. That kindness is always something I think he remembers, you know. I think it's something that he's always remembered, and a reason why we've always respected each other, you know what I mean? So that was the first time I met him, on Kampala Road, in the studio. We shared a plate of food while he was there hanging out with the Chameleons clique. Person to person, I think we were very matter of fact with each other, because when you talk about Radio and you talk about Navio, what you're talking about is continental known brand names. We were both writers. So anytime I'd hear a weak verse from him or something weak on a song, I knew in my mind that's the first thing I'm going to say to him. You know, when I meet him, I'll be like, you guys, you know, Lillian almost killed you on that other song you did, you know. And the same thing with me, you know, he'd be like, that tonic song, you should have come harder. So we always had that playful, combative, aggressive thing when we met each other, you know. But it was never like anything serious, you know. Nothing ever came of it. But yeah, we challenged each other to be better, man, because he knew that I was a real writer. I'm a real writer. You know, I can write for R&B guys, whatnot. I knew he's a real writer as well. He can write for, you know, anyone in the world, and his was just flow of consciousness. We're both very flow of consciousness. So whatever I feel in the moment in studio is going to come out, and it's the same with him. So we always had that respect for each other, you know, but it was always aggressive and playful, and, you know, always taking jabs at each other. And our children are the same with each other. You know, our kids are also very playful and aggressive with each other, and, you know, give each other a hard time, but it's always from a place of love, you know. So it doesn't feel good, man. It doesn't feel good him not being here. I always feel there's a hole in the industry, and some people get to slide into positions where he was, but you need the originator there to make them better than what they're putting across. I feel like singing and singers and how they do their thing, they're pretty good. But I feel like radio was forever improving. And as he improved, other singers would have to aspire and look up to his improvements. We don't have that pinnacle in terms of like actual voices who you hear and you're like, that guy's done something I never thought of. There are a few guys in the industry, but what would he be doing now? You have written a song as good as Radio. Radio passed away years ago. You've done a song as good as Radio. I haven't yet heard an artist who has surpassed him lyrically. And he needed to be there, Let someone surpass you, but we know at least that person could have been better than you. But without someone there, I feel like we're playing without all the cards. You have a chessboard complete with Ugandan acts, but there's a piece missing. So how do we know how to even rate ourselves when you have such a huge piece missing? He was a knight on the table, at least, or a king. He was a king or a knight on a chess table. How do you play chess without a piece? You know what I mean? I also needed him as far as international. After he passed away, I even got less. I felt less. I'd go to award shows and stuff, and thank God now Eddie Kenzo and Triller there. But before it was just Radio and Weasel, Navio, Keko sometimes. And so I was used to seeing them at events like that, and now it's like, what's gonna happen, So I feel bad. I feel like there's a hole on the chessboard. I feel like we need to remember him the right way. What can I say, man? Since sharing a plate of food with him on Kampala Road, while he was still rolling with Chameleon, and to all the way until now. What can I say? It's like we went through a lot of ups and downs. We were the only two acts. I think the Mr. DJ video and Locomotive. It was basically the guys who paid for it were Benon, me, and Radio and Weasel. It was a real plan for unity that we wanted to achieve with those songs, and I feel like now in terms of that generation, a piece is missing, and we're all gonna have to find new positions on the board to keep the chessboard of Ugandan music strong. I think his send-off, you felt the energy from the street when he was already being taken in the hospital. You felt the energy, how the people really loved and felt about him. I feel like with an artist like that, man, there's no roof. If I wish we could have done more. I wish we had more time, for everyone to. There are people he was very close to that never got a chance to really send him off. They even came to the event and never got a chance to really say goodbye. Of course, other people like me, I know that I can be in South America. No one's gonna tell me how to say bye to Radio. I can make peace with that now. But I know for a lot of people, they would have wanted to see his body, put their hand on his hand, and send him off, and they didn't get a chance to do that because of the whole chaos. I know that his kids, one of his baby mothers came to stay with us for a couple of days, while everything was going on, and I know that it was hard to get access even to him, for the children. I don't think that was right, but I think something that Uganda had to mourn in its own way. And yes, they had a right to be angry. I just wish we had more time in between his death and his burial, so that people could have come and really said goodbye to him. His children could have really spent, some moments with him before laying him to rest. That's really the only difference. No.